Welcome to the BusyWise podcast. I'm Leslie Wilson. I'm your host. This week I have such an exciting special guest. This is my cousin, Emily Mitchell. She is an email marketing expert who worked with some of the largest companies in Silicon Valley. She is an artist. She is a survivor. And she is a brilliant and beautiful woman. We're starting a two-part interview in this episode. This episode, we're going to learn about her story, where she came from, and the life that she's gone through up to this point. And then in the next part, we're going to learn what she's learning in the now and what she's doing now. Both are very exciting and touching, and I can't wait to share them with you. So without further ado, here's Emily. Today, we are welcoming Emily Mitchell. She is my cousin, and I'm so excited to talk to her about her life and her story and hear some of the wisdom that she's gained through it. So thank you so much for coming, Emily.
Yay! I'm so excited to be here. My first podcast.
That's so exciting. We're still learning the ropes together. So it's all good because we have to, just do the next thing. So no pressure for perfection because we don't know what that looks like.
Yeah.
So I wanted to talk to you today. I figured we'd start a little bit with your, what life was like kind of early in your life.
Yeah.
You and I know each other with a lot of love as cousins, but we saw each other every other year for most of our lives. So I'd love to learn a little bit more about your early life. What was that like?
I had as pretty opposite of a childhood as you had. So, I had sort of hippie parents from the West Coast. They met on a commune, and one of my mom's sort of favorite things in life, and at this point, necessary things in life, is she loves moving. So my sister and I moved a lot, and at the time, it seemed very normal. And then eventually, my mom moved to Virginia and my dad was in Seattle. So then we were doing every other year. So 1 year in Virginia, 1 year in Seattle, changing schools every time. And so it was kind of, it was unusual, but necessary. I think childhood, I'm so fortunate for it, and especially now where I've gotten in life, because it's allowed me to make friends easy. I think more easy than other people may have who haven't moved as much or haven't had to have that experience of having life interrupted in that way. I think we've talked about this before, but the theme probably of every single story that you'll hear today is sort of life interrupted. And it's really that idea of something happens that's so traumatic and dramatic that you have to pivot really quickly. But within that pivot, I've learned to sort of be able to make friends everywhere I go, and also be calm in crisis. So that's kind of the overarching childhood theme. But the other theme that was there was family. So we always had grandparents and cousins and aunts and uncles around, which I'm incredibly grateful for. So really born into the right families is something that I've come to learn as I get older.
It's such a blessing that you don't realize, I think as a kid, even if you go, oh, well, my family has XYZ better than XYZ, you don't realize that your family was what you needed, like it's not like bigger or smaller than that. It was the family that you needed.
Yeah. Well, and I think on the other side of my family might be better than someone was also the side of like, I really wish I had your family, or I really wish I was part of that family. Like, I can imagine so many people in this world who deep down, though they might not admit it after seeing how weird we are, but like the fact that we do get together every 2 years. And I do know if one of us gets sick, or as we're seeing with David Simpkins, who we just lost, rest in peace, the pivot towards helping. So extended family, that will be helping Cassie through this, cousin showing up. So, it's kind of funny because we think, in what ways are we in a better place than other people? But in what ways are we so incredibly rich in ways that other people may not have in community? So, because I definitely, it's so funny because I remember at a young age where my father's dad lived, a lot of people had vacation homes and they were part of private clubs. And I remember begging, can we just join this like club? These people go, it looks like so much fun. And my family is very democratic, socialist, but not in the negative way that we see life today, but in community. Why would you want to be part of a community that doesn't want other people in there, based on, and so we never got to.
What a powerful lesson to learn at a young age, though.
I was so annoyed. I was like, I just want a vacation, not realizing what that actually meant.
Equals. That doesn't, nothing except for the look, it looks cool. But then to know, like, as an adult, you like the thing that you value is people and community and treating everyone equally. And you're like, wow, that was a lesson that I didn't want to learn then, but thank God I learned it then.
And it makes me sound like such a terrible person to be like.
It makes you sound like a kid. Yeah. Well, I think we had our own tribe with our Acosta family. For the people who don't know us, our great grandmother, this is the story I was told. Now, like everything in our family, I think all the stories got told differently down the cousin lines. It's just like the lullabies that got sung a little bit differently down the cousin lines that all originated from our great grandfather. But our great grandmother, from the story I was told, is that she got all of her children together as they were adults and starting to kind of go build their own lives, and said, I want you to all be together at least every other year, and on odd numbered years, because they're not election years and politics can ruin families. And so they started when our parents were tiny. All gathering together every other year at a beach somewhere. When I was little, it was Bethesda. No, when I was little, it was not Bethesda. When I was little, it was Bethany Beach.
Bethany,
And then we did a couple in Bethesda to be close to Nita. And then our Aunt Nita.
1 year in Georgia.
Right. I remember that year.
Stomach flu
that was
year.
The stomach flu year. That's what I was going to say. It's the reason I can't eat molasses cookies. Because
that's funny.
That hit me right after I ate some molasses cookies.
I always remember the stomach flu years.
The worst, yes. And
now we're in North Carolina.
Yes.
Some of us are.
It's right above the North Carolina, South Carolina border, is where we are now. But I think that the through line of all of those was the laughter for me. Like that's the thing. Like we're very musical, so there's music, and there's my very favorite photo of my grandfather was from the Savannah year, and he's just got his head thrown back and he's laughing. And that is a through line through all of those for me, even if it was the ocean was ice cold when we were up north, or Savannah, we mostly played in the pool.
Because that was by the
the Savannah River plant, and, or the glorious like wide beach at the beach in North Carolina, which we're not going to name because we don't want everyone going there.
No.
But
no, we don't.
Just the through line for me was the laughter, and how very beautiful and vital and very different all the
Mm-hmm.
families were, because my
Yep.
family ended up in Columbia, South Carolina, and you moved back and forth from East Coast to
Between,
West
yeah,
Coast all of your life. We have
yeah.
family who ended up, in the Bethesda, Maryland, DC area. We have family in New York City and upstate New
I tell
York.
people we go all the way up to New Hampshire, I
Hmm.
think is the most
Yeah.
north. Nope. No, Maine, because Jackson, Maine,
Okay.
all the way
Right.
down to Georgia and
Hmm.
all the way east to Ohio. And then there's my sister and I who are based in
Who you're
Seattle.
holding down the West Coast for us.
Yeah. Yeah. And we are like real West Coast, like hippie communes, 60s, 70s, 80s West Coast. So
Yeah.
I feel
Yeah.
like that's real. I mean, I guess it's not in terms of generation wise, but it was a wild time on the West Coast.
It was a wild time on the West Coast. So
Yeah.
now, from when you were a child,
Right.
where did you end up going to college?
So our cousin said, John said, go to the small Midwest college. I went there, just do it. You'll have a great time. And at that point, I had met someone my senior year of high school, and it was my first boyfriend, and he was based in Seattle, and he was a little bit older, and I was really excited to go to college my junior year. I was like, I can't wait for this. And then by my senior year, I was working in Seattle. It was the mid 90s in Seattle. So, like, I grew up seeing Pearl Jam, doing all ages shows in Seattle before they were huge. And then after Pearl Jam and Nevada, I went to like a party in the 80s that Kurt Cobain was at. It was
Wow.
just a weird time in life, like, and eventually, it was a great time, and I didn't want to go away. But John said go, and I said, okay, why not? Because everyone kept saying you have to go to college. I don't know that it was the right choice. If I could go back, and do things differently, I think I would have stayed in the working world a little bit more, because I definitely didn't know what I wanted to do in college. But I knew I needed to get a degree. So I went to the Midwest, and it was really hard. Yeah, I felt like I was in an after school special from the 80s about homophobia. like one of those, Channel 9 was our PBS station, but it was like going back in time for me, because I had grown up in Seattle where and I'd grown up with really progressive parents where it was like it didn't matter. Those things didn't matter, to who the person was. And I grew up in a very not religious family. So there was no doctrine to how you and I connect. And there was, my dad was, he went to Harvard, but after Harvard, he went into the Peace Corps, and he went into something called Vista in New York, and he did Lower East Side tenants' rights. And then he moved to San Jose and did immigrant farmer rights in the 70s. And then he met all these people, and they bought a farm and started a commune. So, I grew up hearing stories about immigrant children in the Lower East Side getting the bubonic plague from, rats in their apartments, or lead poisoning from the state of apartments in New York City in the 70s and the late 60s. So then to go to the Midwest was really jarring for me. And then I also have some physical things that I think I'm starting to understand now more as genetics breakthroughs happens, which will come back when we talk about my cancer diagnosis. But I fell off a horse when I was 15, and it cut the nerve off in one of my legs. And so all of a sudden my left leg went numb, and I was dragging it, but it took, I think, 5 months before I could get what I needed to get done. Like, it just seemed weird, but it didn't occur to me to say, like,
hey,
and
this
it
is
didn't
a
occur.
problem.
Yeah, it just was like, oh, my leg keeps going to sleep. That's weird. Um, so I had a lot of health issues, and I don't think I should have went so far from family
Mm.
based on that, because there were days in college where I couldn't even put my own shoes on, and I was depending on strangers my age, right? So it's like kids taking care of kids, and
18 year
nobody
olds
wants
are so good at
it.
that.
Yeah, and nobody at 18, you don't want to help someone put their shoes on when you're late for class. Like,
Mm.
it was the last thing people wanted to do. So I went to the Midwest. And then I actually, I don't know if you know this story. This is so fun because you're going to learn things. I don't know if you know, but I had some really traumatic things happen in a really short time period during college. One of the things that happened right when I was leaving college was both my grandfathers, who had been the pillar of both sides of my family, died. So my
Mm.
parents went into grief shutdown mode, right? So here
Mm.
I am going to college. I have health issues.
You're
I have
far
two
away.
parents. I'm far away. I have parents who, but it didn't seem far away because I had grown up living in DC and living in
Mm.
Seattle. So my parents thought the Midwest was great because it was like right in
Halfway
between
through.
both of them. Yeah. So they're like, oh, she's fine. When, can you imagine sending your kids out like that far away with
I keep
health stuff?
I keep trying to pretend like I'm not a hover mom, but I have a 19 and a 17-year-old with health stuff. So
Yeah.
like, yeah,
Yep.
yeah.
Yeah. Um, so some pretty traumatic stuff happened at college in a really short succession of time. And I also was not handling my grief of losing my grandparents and my grief of my first love ending. And it was just so I quit college, got myself kicked out. Like I just basically stopped going to class.
Mhm.
Um, and just was like, I'm like so deep into what's happening, that it looked like I was just being flaky, but now I'm like, oh God, that was terrible. So I ended up home and everyone kept saying, oh, and I had just learned about setting intentions.
Mhm.
So I come home and I'm like, guys, don't worry. I got this. And everyone's like, what are you going to do now? And I was like, it's going to come to me. Just
Take a
you
breath.
wait.
Yeah.
And people were like, my dad was like, you don't leave the house. Like, how is the job going to come to you? And then my Aunt Joe, called and said, hey, your cousin John has 3 babies under the age of 4
Mhm.
and lives in New York City, and they need to find a nanny. Their nanny had just had to return home suddenly. And so I said, okay, let's do it. And then the next thing I knew, I was on a plane to New York City to become a nanny with cousins that I had only met every 2 years, that I knew was family, but
Yeah.
like let them in, they let me into their home, and, they just opened my mind of what life could be like. And our cousin John is a photographer. And so seeing someone who was so passionate about his art and being able to take care of himself and a family doing it, and his dedication, and um, he just functioned better as a human than I had ever really seen in a lot of ways. I mean, everyone has their
Mhm.
weaknesses, but in terms of being able to live that dream
Yeah.
that of of being the artist and being this creative, amazing man, and his wife Michelle is just incredible artist and mom, and yeah, so I got to experience New York City from the eyes of like a 3-year-old, and just walking the streets of Little Italy with Jack and Henry and Olivia, and
Mm.
so okay, back to college, get out. What do I want to do once I've graduated? Well, I'm in Seattle again,
Mhm.
and the tech world's there. And I knew, so this is like 2001. I knew the tech world was not sustainable. It
Mm.
was kind of to me like Detroit in the 50s. So it was like, it was our industry, you know?
Yeah.
So my sister at that point was working at Amazon. She started in Amazon the first few years. And so I got like contracting jobs. I never really did full time positions. There's a very big difference between a contractor and a full time employee in the tech world.
Okay.
At that time, that was right. So kind of funny. So in the old days, they would hire tech people as contractors, and then you'd roll into full time within 3 to 6 months, barring a lot of things. Because we're talking 97 to 2000 and probably 5 or so. When the tech industry was bigger. Now it's like if you contract, then you are just a contractor, and then they hire MFAs and MBAs, and they hire people. So I started contracting, and that was good for me because I have a lot of learning disabilities, and sitting in an office is about the worst thing that I could do for myself. And I knew I was living somebody else's life, I think, now that I look back. But I just felt like I needed to get a job, I need to get a house, and then just like that was all I could
You
think
needed to
about.
do the checklist. You needed to do the checklist.
Yeah.
Like, okay, so I've seen other successful people and this was their checklist. And even though I have also seen people do it other ways, I feel like when we, especially right that age group when we went, because I graduated high school in 97.
Okay,
and I
so
feel
right
like
after me.
there was a checklist. And it didn't occur to me that there was anything else but the checklist. Now, funny enough, all of my siblings didn't follow the checklist. Maybe I did it really badly, and they were like, eh.
Yeah. Well, no, because all your siblings are younger than you.
They
right?
are.
So
they
came.
Yeah.
I mean, I think about 1995 to, I don't know, even 2020, like the amount of change in humans and in terms of everything, like we were too late for the, and too early for the, well, there you go.
I thought you had to do the checklist, and it didn't all go to plan.
No.
But
everything
I feel like
gets interrupted.
I completely understand. You were like, okay, so I've done the college thing. I have taken my own path. Now it's time to settle down, do the work thing, do the house thing, do the thing.
Yep.
I get that.
And I really liked New York, but I knew I needed more nature because, I came from Seattle and everything. And then also I just knew I needed a college degree because it never occurred to me that I could lie and say, oh yeah, I graduated.
Sure. Yeah.
And at that point you could do this and you could get jobs. And, I met someone later who was like, oh yeah, I totally lied. I never actually graduated from college and, this and that. And I was like, what? But to me, it was like, I'm such a terrible liar and secret keeper. So don't ever tell me secrets. But I knew, so I was like, I knew I wanted to go back to school because everyone in New York kept saying you're too smart not to have a degree. And then I knew, after that, it was like, okay, get the job. But it just, it never occurred to me to lie. And that probably shot me in the foot a lot, but now I feel pretty okay about it.
You're okay with the path that happened because you were honest.
Yeah. Yeah. So I went into the tech world and it was shitty. But one of the things that John Dolan always said was, even at college, he was like, it doesn't matter what you major in, just go. And then it doesn't matter, what you start working in, just find the place that makes you happy. So I got introduced to a woman when I was no, actually, this is my one full-time job. I was a real worker at Amazon, but my manager hated me and was trying to get me fired, which when HR went back to look at her records, she did this on a regular basis. She had some real mental issues. And Amazon was about to open up a video game store. And so it was like everybody had to be ready within 2 or 3 weeks. Then 2 or 3 nights before the store launches, someone comes to me and they say, I can't get any of my orders in to get the product, the buyer, to get the product into the warehouses to ship when Jeff Bezos says we have to ship this. And it was very exciting. And I stayed up all night and I was talking to dudes in India, and I didn't know anything about programming or computers really. And I just said to this guy, I go, is there some sort of code in the idea of this product that is stopping this from transmitting? And it turned out yes. And everything got solved. And that gave me a high. But what it also did was it introduced me to video games, and that I knew I liked people who, well, I like the women. Let me be clear. The video games there's 2 different sides. I liked the women who worked in video games, and I loved playing video games. It was always, even in college, it was a way to settle my brain that had so much going on in it, from just the way that I kind of grew up and having to make friends every year. It was like adrenal overload, so much new stimuli coming at me, and life
this is
changes.
A consistent, the game is consistent even when everything else is chaos.
Yeah. So then let's see, now we're up to 2000 and I think 8, and I pivot out of a very codependent relationship that I've been in for 6 or 7 years. But codependent, but also like creatively the best relationship I've ever been in. Not saying that I'm not creatively a genius outside of this person. Not, whoa, but just like within a relationship of living with someone and having someone in my space, and having grown up the way that my sister and I grew up, there were periods where one of us was on the East Coast and one of us was on the West Coast, right? So it's like half my childhood, I'm part of this team. And then a big chunk of my childhood, I'm an only child. And then I'm an only child that's living with her father and her grandfather, right? So these are not particularly social people. I'm being raised by men. It's like a dog's raising a cat, I'm thinking I don't know what is going on. Anyway, so I come out of this relationship, which was really hard. And I fall down and I hurt my back. And this time I've hurt the right side of my spine. So now it's cutting into all of the nerves that have been compensating for the injury when I was 16, and I missed almost my entire junior year of high school because I was bedridden. So now I'm past 30, I guess, at this point, and I've just gotten out of this relationship and I'm bedridden. Oh, no. Well, okay. So, I also had started a candle making company before I left Amazon. And I got Glassy Baby, which I don't know if you know who they are, but they're this huge, they make these hand blown glass photo holders and they're beautiful. And I had some connections to the owner, and I saw her at a business conference, and I said, hey, I hand make candles. I'll make whatever you want. Take me on. So she says, great. So I leave the tech world and I get this candle making contract, I guess. Very informal, nothing signed. Hey, we need 5,000 boxes. Sure, I'll deliver those in 2 weeks. And then I'm making 15,000 candles by hand. And then, so it's exciting. Like I've left a relationship that's really hard, but I've also started this little company and I'm having the first kind of like, oh, maybe I could do something else. I fall, hurt the other side. Now I can't walk because the damage to, because of the original injury. And now I've got it on the other side. So when people would see me walk at that point, it was like, oh, you could really tell I had like nerve damage
Mhm.
and the amount of energy required to tell my leg to work so that I could, I mean, it was hard. So, I end up having to close down the candle company because um, I can't hustle for more work
Mhm.
and I can't sustain on the one thing. And I'm kind of like, God, bedridden, like I need to get out of my bedroom. Um, and then there's just a lot of, and fentanyl had just been introduced. And they put me on fentanyl, which thank God I'm not an addict because I came
Yeah.
off of it. And, but you know, it was just a lot of like, I got to get out of this bedroom. So I moved to the East Coast to work at a world famous health spa on the East Coast. So I was like, hey, I'm into holistic stuff. I've just come off owning this intention candle company
Mhm.
in the early 2000s. You know, maybe I can go and work at this spa and eventually like work my way up. And, you know, I want to kind of try this out. And I got there and it was not a good place for me. I'm not super good at not connecting with people, and they didn't want you to connect with people because you were supposed to be hired help. So that was a no go.
That's the opposite of you. That's the
Yeah,
opposite
I was
of
like,
everything that you had done so far was like everything had been built on those people connections. And then now you're
yep,
supposed to be the furniture. We joke
yeah,
in meetings sometimes in my department that we just really need to be the furniture. Like if no one notices we're there, that's what we want
yeah,
because we're kind of running the background tasks. But
yeah.
yeah, no, I can't imagine you being furniture.
No, it was very hard. So I came back to Seattle, and my back's better. So I had I had to go and get 5 different opinions
Mm,
about my back situation, and I finally found a doctor that I really trusted, who was like, "Look, if you fuse your spine now, in 15 years, your whole spine will have to be fused. Like you have
mm,
to learn to live with this because you're going to have so many issues when you get
mhm,
older." So that required learning about self care
mhm,
on a lot of levels. And I really believe back issues are rooted in stability and rooted in like trauma when stability is taken away. So again, it's that idea of like, I wouldn't wish my experience on anyone, but I can understand what God is trying to teach me and a little
mm,
bit better now as I age. But at the time, it was just like I was in a tornado of confusion. So again, that question that John asked of like, what would you enjoy doing? You know, what is it
mm,
that drives you? And I just realized like video games really healed me. I just thought, you know, I love video games and I like the people that work in it. And I had
mm,
been lucky enough that the buyer at Amazon that I really connected with has stayed a lifelong friend and has, you know, through a lot of glass ceilings
mm,
for women in games.
mm,
Um, and she just every time, I mean, I would see her once every like 4 years or keep in touch or reach out occasionally if I um, needed something or just wanted to say hi, but maintain that connection. And she just kept encouraging me and was like, we need you in the industry. So I said, okay, I want to go contract at Xbox. And this is when Xbox 360 was out, and it was like the hype up.
mm,
Um, because during my relationship with my ex, you know, I was always like, I want to work for an internationally known brand
Okay.
in marketing. Like that was my dream.
Mm-hmm.
That was what I wanted. And I didn't care if I was working at the creative studio, if I was working corporate, like I just knew that was like my dream is I want to be like a marketing manager for an internationally known brand. So I targeted Xbox and I went to Xbox and I ended up being there like 5 years and it was the best experience, corporate experience. I mean, I'm still not great at it. I can still get my job done and play video games in between doing work because, and just be like, well, I could at that age. I cannot anymore. So I just had I just kept getting better and better gigs at Xbox and it just felt like we were part of this amazing thing. And it was during the 360 days and I was there for the Xbox One launch. Mm-hmm. And that was really exciting.
It was a Sony, big moment in my house.
It was huge. It was great up until E3, which used to be the big video game conference. And Sony came out on the stage because they were the last so they would draw sticks on like Nintendo, Xbox, or 360. Who's going to present first? Yeah. And whoever presented first and said, here's what we're going to be capable of, the other two would then go back and be like, oh, well, we have to add this. We have to
fix the slide deck right now.
Yeah. And then so Sony just blew us out of water. And it was like, you could just hear a collective.
That was like the PS5, right? That came out with PS4. The 1 or 4. It was the 4 that came out with the 1.
Yeah. No, wait, maybe. No, you're right. It was the PS4. Oh, see, this is bad. So I can't even remember. So, okay. So went to Xbox, took a little gig at T-Mobile for a while. That wasn't the place for me. Went to Nintendo. In all fairness, Nintendo is run by a Japanese company. Mm. Japanese people are not ready for women that are 5, 6 that weigh twice their weight and actually like marketing. So it was not a great fit in terms of
the corporate culture.
The corporate culture. Yes.
Yeah.
And just where I was. And now that I look back on it, I was like, oh yeah, I was actually really sick at that time physically. Like I remember thinking within the first month of that job, I should leave now and tell them I'm incredibly sorry I can't do this job because I'm not physically well enough. But I pushed myself for 10 months to finish the commitment that I'd given them, which was I'll come work for a year and then we'll reevaluate. Because at that point, I was kind of an email expert. So technically, creatively, like I had been in email marketing for years and had learned so much about it, like creatively, because I had teams that, that was my mom. I had teams that did that I worked with that were highly paid experts. So, but I met a lot of great people there, and I love that I worked there and that I was a part of the launch of the new Nintendo Switch. I was part of that launch. So I had launched 2 of the 3 video game consoles on the market, and that was pretty cool. Like my ego was feeling good. And that's why I also think a big part of why I didn't fit in the culture at that point was my ego was big. People that work at Microsoft, it's such a great company in every way, except that it's so good that it fills that ego part of you. And so I ended up, okay, so what happened? Oh, I worked through so much illness that I finally had to say to my family, like, I have to get surgeries. Because at this point, things were starting to really kind of go wrong within my system.
Yeah.
So I turned 40 and I've just let the corporate world, not knowing, I thought I'll take a year off and I'll slip right back in. No problem. And it was like that thought for 1 or 2 weeks after my surgery. And then it was like, I started just getting worse and worse. However, while I've left the corporate world, I became friends with someone who was really interested in the cooking world. And I got kind of interested in it. And I was like, hey, this is kind of a cool, fun community.
Mm-hmm.
And so I just had this vision one day of a company that I could easily create a website and do all this work from home. I didn't have to meet these people face to face necessarily because it was a website. And so it was like I could do all this at home. I already knew so much about marketing. Oh, I had also, should also say that while I'm working at Nintendo, I've started something called ritual coaching, which I did for a couple of years. I guess it started before Nintendo really, but and it was another intention setting kind of candle company, but bigger and better and more products and all this stuff. And then when I got sick, I had to stop it suddenly because physically I couldn't do it anymore. And I don't know how to explain that other than it was, I think, a spiritual illness. Like it just was not, it was not the thing for me. So it's like I'm physically deteriorating, but I'm also spiritually deteriorating, and money's super stressful. So I meet this friend.
I was going to say really quickly, I think that people who have chronic illnesses will understand that in a way that maybe people who haven't personally dealt with chronic illness or dealt with it directly in their family might not understand how much spiritual, emotional toll chronic illness takes to the point where it shifts the way that you focus and how you can focus. And sometimes getting out of bed takes as much energy as an 8-hour workday, you know, like, and even not an 8-hour workday for somebody else, but an 8-hour workday for you when you were not battling the illness in that way. You know, and maybe like, and I also think that people don't always understand how seasonal chronic illnesses can be, how you can have times where you are running at your full speed and you have the energy. And when you have those times, you're like, oh, well, this is better. I can do all these things again. I'm past that. And then the illness presents in a different way or comes back in a way and you don't realize, like, and then you're back to, it takes that much energy just to get out of bed. And I think it's an experience. A lot of people that I've met with chronic illnesses, living with some people with chronic illnesses in my house, it's an experience that you don't understand until you've lived it. And then once you've lived it, it's almost like you can't explain. People, you're like, well, I just didn't have the spiritual energy, the emotional energy to do this thing that I loved. And they're like, oh, well, you know, but when you get better, and even in your heart, when people say that, you go, you don't get it, because it's not about getting better. It's about managing what is. So...
Sorry, can you hear Lolly?
I can't.
Okay, good. I definitely feel that when people are like, well, you might get better. I'm like,
that looks different than you think it looks. You can say, oh yeah, like I hope we have a better season, but getting better or having a better season looks different for you than what people think it would look like.
And that's one of the things is, before I'd taken the Nintendo job, I got a viral sickness. And I think that was really kind of the start of everything, because I went from being able to work a full 8-hour day, meet friends for dinner after work, hang out with them, go home, sleep 10 to 5, wake up, do it the next day. And then all weekend, you know, out with friends. I wasn't partying, but I was going to farmers markets, and then we were having brunch, and then we were, you know, going to a movie. And so it was like up at 10, home at 10, you know.
It was a full life.
It was a very full life. And all of a sudden, while I was working at Nintendo and dealing with a lot of stuff there, I couldn't figure out why I suddenly was coming home every night just exhausted and then sleeping all weekend. I went from being able to do things on both Saturday and Sunday to then needing to do really kind of quiet things on Sunday to then suddenly it was like I would do something on Saturday and then I would sleep all Sunday because I had to prepare for Monday. And then it started to be come home Friday night, get in bed, and not get out of bed again until Monday. And it happened slowly and fastly at the same time, right? Like at the time, it seemed really odd. Like, why am I so exhausted? But now I'm like, oh, yeah, within that 10 months, you went from not, I had nerve damage and I had chronic illness and that my back went out. But I didn't have what I have now. And I really think it's from this virus, but it's this consuming exhaustion. And so, yeah, so I quit the job and I'm getting better. And I started this internet thing. And then I get it launched and I lose a friendship over it for reasons I still don't really quite understand this day. But it was not my choice. And then, so then while I'm in this in-between time, and now it's hit me, I'm never going to be able to go back to work and I'm probably never going to be able to make money. My stepdad who helped raise me is dying. And, I've just lost this friendship and all this stuff happens. And I start having these thoughts just randomly in the shower, in bed at night. Oh, you have cancer. And I was like, why would I say that or think that? Like, what a horrible thing to think. Stop putting those ideas in my head. Like I don't want that.
Intrusive thought.
Yes. Yeah. And then I start dreaming about it. And then I start going like, okay, something's coming up. I've got to figure this out. So I just happened to be online one day and I see a poster for Know Your Lemons. And it was a British campaign to show the signs of breast cancer. And I thought, well, this is interesting. It was done in a way where I think it was a dozen lemons in an like egg carton. And they all had a unique telling of if you have breast cancer. And so and I remember looking at it at the time thinking, well, I probably don't need this. I just turned 40 and I know I need to get a mammogram, but we're not there yet. Because I was still thinking like, I want to have a baby, like I just did not realize how the women's bodies age in a way that our modern society does not fit with.
It doesn't accept. It doesn't accept it at all.
Because I did ask the doctor after the diagnosis, I said, what could I have done to prevent this? And she said, had a baby at 10 years old. She's like, that's really kind of probably the only thing you could have done to prevent it. And I was like,
excuse me?
I told you I wanted a baby when I was in 6th grade.
Sure, that would have been the plan.
I know. I remember in 6th grade, I really wanted one. And I was like, I got to make jokes. I got to joke.
You got to survive.
The reality is like, what? That's illegal in most countries. Not all, but,
most of it.
Yeah. So I started having these thoughts. And so I think, well, okay, I'll plan a mammogram, but I've got to go to the East Coast. We had a reunion coming up. My stepdad is dying / ended up dying right before I came out. And I just am so blown out of the water by that because he had been my best friend since he'd come into my world. And I think we were soulmates. And even his partner after he passed said, like, you knew him better than I did. Like, you guys were so close and clearly had meant to be together in this lifetime.
Yeah,
so
to walk this world together.
Yeah. So, but I remember at that reunion, and I don't know if you were at that one or not, but I was warning people. I was like, look, I'm pretty sure, 99% sure I have cancer. And so I just want to warn you, and I don't want this to be shocking. And, but this is happening. And everyone kept saying how silly I was being and don't say that. But I just knew. so when they actually told me, I was not super surprised. So I wrote my doctor while I'm in DC and I said, hey, I'm coming back this day. And I found it was not a lump, but I found something that concerns me, and let's go, let's set up. And she, for some reason in that moment, sent me straight to the cancer center. She was like, I don't want to make her wait to come in here. I want her right in there right now. And I just thank God for that, because
yes.
I mean, that could have, at that time, it was not the medical crisis that it is now, the system, but it definitely would have delayed things.
Yeah.
So I came home, I think on like a Monday, and on Wednesday I went in for my mammogram, and my mammogram turned into an emergency ultrasound, which turned into an emergency biopsy, all within an hour and a half of time. So I'm leaving the cancer center. Oh no, it was a Friday. I came in Wednesday. It was a Friday. And everyone's getting off at 5:00, and my dad and I could just get in this elevator full of people, and I just start crying, and he shields me from the people. And because at this point, this was before I'd had the diagnosis, but I knew, like,
yeah,
all right,
there are some steps that happen that are pretty good indicators. Yeah.
Yeah. So the doctor got the notice. No, it was not a Friday we left. It must have just been a Wednesday, because the doctor got the notice Friday evening. And Fred Hutch is the greatest cancer center in the world. And when they do tests, you get results within the day. They are pushing stuff through. So she knew Friday afternoon, and she was like, I can't call this woman and tell her this on a Friday afternoon, because then you've got 48 hours in which you just found out you have cancer. You cannot do anything about it, and you're freaking out. So she waited till Monday, and I went in and she gave me the results. And I had already was prepared. So it was kind of like, all right, what do we have to do? And I was a project manager in the marketing world. So I project managed the heck out of my whole medical experience. My aunt, who is not super impressed with me on a daily basis, was incredibly impressed with me, because it was like I had been preparing for that fight my whole life. I knew what to bring into medical stuff because I'd been in so many medical situations, and it was just like, okay. And, this is also when Facebook was a relatively safe space. So I was joining breast cancer communities on Facebook and learning in real time more, what is the right word? Sorry, chemo brain. I'm learning how to live with this, with the treatment. So solutions for things that,
kind of the practical stuff you needed to have. Yeah.
So, so I was going in there and I had a list, and my aunt, on the East Coast had gone through treatment a year or two before me. So she gave me a lot of great advice that really helped me sort of stay on top of things, keep diaries, and, and the thing about chemo is it's sort of the same experience after each session. You go through a rhythm. And so if you watch that first infusion, what your rhythm is, you will then know, they get worse as time goes on, but you at least know, like, oh, day 3, this weird ass thing is going to happen. In day 5, I'm going to start to feel better. And by day 8, I'll be able to stomach pizza, and then I've got to do it again. So, so I've gotten diagnosed, and between diagnosis day, God, I feel like I'm talking too much. Do we have to?
You're not, you're good.
So between diagnosis day and started treatment was 3.5 weeks. So it's just crazy. And then I got so tired trying to prepare for chemo and treatment that I was actually the night before, like, oh, I'm really glad it's happening tomorrow so I can settle down. In the 3.5 weeks, I learned I have worst case scenario. So we've already gone to stage 3 by size. I have two different tumors, one in each breast, and they're different cancers.
Wow.
So they're like, we have to throw everything at you, and we're really sorry. And I didn't realize at the time the looks of pity on their faces, but now I look back and I'm like, oh, they knew. They knew how much chemical that was that my body was going to take, and the likelihood that something would probably break. And it did, big time. But it saved my life, and I would completely do it the same. And I'm so incredibly grateful that all of that happened and that I was able to not work during treatment so I could spend 100% of my energy just trying to survive and then trying to get better. But it's been kind of a crazy experience because 3 months into my treatment, I start hearing about this illness in Asia. And my brother-in-law has recently come back from China, super sick. So I don't get to see my sister or my nephews through my chemo treatment because she kept saying, well, we're too sick. We're too sick. And they kept passing it back and forth. And I was like, way to show up. But we really think what he had was one of the first cases of chemo because he's a marathon runner and this took him down hard. Not
COVID,
first cases of COVID. So my world had shut down. I had started wearing masks before this. I had stopped going out in public. I had no, that's not true. Actually, I went out. I mean, I had to shave my head because I was going to lose all my hair. I will say the first chemo I was on, the first 8 weeks, I looked amazing because my eyebrows were still there and I look really cute with a shaved head. But this chemo made my skin glow. I mean, I looked so baby, newborn, like plump and glowy and fresh from this chemo. It was crazy. And then I switched into the chemo where all the hair fell off of my entire body and I lost, I don't know, like 25 pounds. And I was I looked incredibly sick and I had stopped. And that was when COVID started getting really big. And it was weird because I had seen a friend in November for Thanksgiving or right after Thanksgiving. And within 2 weeks of her visiting me, she almost died from COVID because she had pre-existing conditions. So the world started shutting down and my world was shutting down. And that was incredibly hard. And at this point, I'm also like I'm really realizing, no, that's not true. Because even after chemo, I was trying to make like sherbet and sell sherbet. And then I started like a flower thing and I was selling flowers for a while. So I'm trying to like make money throughout all of these steps because
it's on the checklist.
Yeah. And I went out and got a job at 16. Like I'm not opposed to working. I like making money.
Yeah.
But when you have a body that does not function normally, making money is almost impossible. And for me, I haven't found success, but I'm sure there are people that have, but I have not found that formula yet. So I keep trying to do things. And then I finally just get to a point where I realize I can't do the flower stuff anymore in terms of growing on a large scale or selling because I can't, it's too physically demanding. And it just the amount of money I make for the price of
not sustainable. Yeah.
Is not sustainable. And I just hit a low and a spiritual low, and I'd started picking up praying when I was going through chemo because I was at such a low point. It was the only thing that I could do was just say God. And I don't even who God is or what God looks like. I don't have an idea because I didn't grow up again in normalized religion. But I know I need to believe in something to get me through this experience. Just being who I am. and my personality. And so I really turned to God. And one of the other things that really got me through it was, and this is going to be crazy, but just because you look at me and you're like, what? But Kendrick Lamar's Mr. Morale and the Big Steppers came out.
Okay.
And I just remember going to my greenhouse and listening to the process that he's going through, where he realizes his old life is unsustainable. That even though he has money and even though he has his health, like, he's not happy. And I just, so I kind of just went through the thing and I just said, okay, God, just point me in the direction. I need a reason to be here. Whatever I do from here on out, because I've survived cancer and I'm a couple of years out. So the chances of it returning are lowering. I'm not, 100. So I'm not ready to really throw in the towel yet, but I'm still here and I have to have something.
Emily talked about an interrupted life, so maybe it's only fair that we pause the interview here and come back for the next episode to hear the rest of the story, as Paul Harvey used to say. BusyWise is all about the practical wisdom we learn through living our everyday life. And Emily has already told us so much about what she learned in those experiences, starting new businesses, working with new companies, and she only has more to share. And I'm excited for you to hear it. Make sure you don't miss an episode by subscribing to the podcast on YouTube, Facebook, and Instagram. We're excited that the podcast will go to the regular podcast network soon, and we'll keep you updated on that. So make sure to like and subscribe so you'll know when that happens. And like every week, I'd really like to encourage you to think about what you've learned in your everyday life and who you can share that wisdom with.